surrender before. Rest is a call to lay down the heavy weight that has been carried throughout the day, to bring every burden, every care, every worry into the presence of God, and to release it from the grasp of a weary heart. As the day comes to its close, the mind often revisits the struggles faced, the words spoken, the tasks left undone, and the fears that lie ahead. Yet in the stillness of the night, there is an invitation to surrender these thoughts to the one who holds tomorrow in his hands. To surrender before rest is to acknowledge that human strength has limits. The body and soul cannot endure the ceaseless pressure of striving alone, and that peace is only found when God is trusted fully with what remains unresolved. It is a deliberate act of loosening the grip on things beyond control and allowing divine hands to take over where human effort ends. When one kneels before God at the close of day, there is a sacred exchange taking place. The heart that is heavy with the weight of concerns finds release in prayer, and the soul that is restless is quieted in the presence of the Almighty. Surrender before rest is not weakness. It is the greatest strength, for it requires humility to admit that the day's challenges were too great to carry into the night. The spirit that refuses to let go of burdens is restless and anxious. The spirit that yields everything to God experiences the sweetness of His peace. In surrender, there is a letting go of fear, of doubt, of the need to control outcomes, and there is a deep trust that the Lord will provide, guide, and protect even as the eyes are closed in slumber. It is a recognition that God does not sleep nor slumber, and that His watchful care continues through the darkest hours of the night. To surrender before rest is to place relationships, struggles, disappointments, and even successes into God's hands. It is to admit that victory does not come from personal effort alone, but from the grace of God who strengthens His children. It is to whisper prayers that release unforgiveness, bitterness, and regrets, so that the heart may not be weighed down by yesterday's wounds. In this surrender, the soul breathes freely again, finding space for gratitude, hope, and quiet confidence in God's plan. It is a beautiful exchange. Sorrow is given up, and comfort is received, where fear is released and courage is restored. Weakness is surrendered, and divine strength is imparted. The body rests better when the spirit is at peace. True peace comes only when one lays all things before the throne of grace. This surrender is also a declaration of trust. By entrusting all things into God's care before the night begins, there is a testimony that His power is greater than every storm, His wisdom higher than every confusion, and His love deeper than every wound. To surrender before rest is to say, with a quiet heart, Lord, You are in control. I do not need to carry this any longer. Take it, for I trust you completely. In that sacred moment of surrender, burdens lose their power. The weary soul finds renewal as it prepares for the gift of another day under God's watchful hand. Renewal of strength is one of the most gracious gifts that God provides for His children when the weight of life has pressed upon their shoulders and the demands of each day have drained the body, the nadi, primarily. What's will drain the body, the mind, and the spirit? No one can continue endlessly in their own strength, for human energy is finite, and the heart grows weary when stretched beyond its limits. The Scripture reminds us that those who wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles, run and not grow weary, walk and not faint. This promise reveals that renewal is not simply about physical refreshment, but about the deep restoration of the inner being that comes only from the presence of God. To seek renewal of strength is to admit that one's own reserves have run low, and to turn to the eternal source who never grows weary nor faint. It is in this place of surrender where divine power begins to flow again into the life of a believer, reviving what has been depleted and lifting up what has grown weak every day. Brings its own share of challenges, responsibilities, and unexpected battles. Some days leave scars of disappointment. Some weigh heavily with burdens unspoken, while others simply exhaust through endless duties and obligations. Renewal of strength comes when all of this is laid down at the feet of God. For in His presence the soul drinks deep lie of peace and assurance. The renewal He gives is not like the fleeting energy that comes from rest alone or the temporary relief found in distractions. It is a spiritual renewal that breathes life into dry bones and causes the weary heart to beat with courage once more. It is the touch of God that makes the faint rise again and the discouraged find hope. This renewal equips the believer not only to face another day, but to walk with confidence in the assurance that God Himself is upholding and sustaining every step. Renewal of strength is also a reminder that God does not abandon His children in their children, that does not abandon weakness. In moments of exhaustion and despair, He becomes the very strength of their heart and their portion forever. When the spirit feels like it cannot continue, the Lord whispers His promises, filling the soul with endurance. His Spirit provides fresh vision and renewed perspective, reminding His children that their labor is not in vain, that their struggles are not unnoticed, and that every tear shed is seen and remembered. Renewal of strength lifts the eyes from the weight of present trials to the hope of eternal victory, shifting the heart from self-reliance to God-reliance. In this renewal, there is both rest for the weary and an empowerment for the journey still ahead. It is in prayer, in quiet meditation on His Word, and in the stillness of surrender that this renewal takes place. Just as the body requires food and water to continue, so does the spirit require the presence of God to be sustained. Those who rest in Him find that their strength is renewed, not by their own doing, but by His Spirit working within them. It is an exchange where weakness is poured out and divine strength is poured in, where weariness is replaced by courage, and where discouragement gives way to hope. Renewal of strength is God's assurance that He who began a good work will be faithful to complete it, and that no matter how heavy the load, His grace is sufficient to carry His children forward. Calm of the Spirit is a divine gift that settles the heart when the noise of life has become overwhelming and the weight of troubles threatens to consume the soul. It is not merely the absence of conflict or the quieting of external circumstances, but the inner stillness that comes from resting in the presence of God. The calm that the Spirit imparts is deeper than human understanding, a peace that surpasses logic and explanation, flowing like a river through the soul, even when storms rage all around. This calm is not on favorable conditions or the removal of trials, for the world will always present challenges and burdens, but it is rooted in the unshakable truth that God is sovereign and near to those who call upon Him. In this calm, fear loses its grip, anxiety is silenced, and the troubled mind finds rest. The heart is often restless because it tries to carry what it was never meant to bear. Worries about tomorrow, regrets about yesterday, and pressures of the present rob the spirit of tranquility. Yet, the calm of the Spirit is poured out when one chooses to cast every care upon the Lord, trusting that He cares and that nothing is hidden from His sight. This calm is the quiet assurance that God is in control. No problem is beyond His wisdom, and no burden too heavy for His mighty hand. When the Spirit brings calm, it is as though a gentle stillness settles over the soul, a reminder that though the waves may roar and the winds may blow, the presence of God remains an unmovable anchor. This calm is not fleeting or fragile, but enduring, because it is sustained by the one who never changes and whose love never fails. Calm of the Spirit also allows the believer to rest, not only in the body, but in the depths of the heart. Sleepless nights and anxious thoughts lose their power when the Spirit breathes peace into the soul. This calm is like a shield guarding the mind from the torment of fear and the weight of endless what-ifs. It allows one to sleep securely, knowing that God neither slumbers nor sleeps, and that His watchful care is constant through the night, even in the midst of unanswered prayers or unresolved situations. The calm of the Spirit teaches the soul to wait patiently and to trust deeply, for God's timing is perfect and His ways are higher than human understanding. This calm reshapes the inner posture, teaching stillness instead of striving, faith instead of fear, and hope instead of despair. When the Spirit calms the heart, relationships are also transformed. Words spoken in haste are replaced by words of grace. Anger is subdued. Forgiveness flows more freely. The calm that comes from God overflows into the way one responds to others, becoming a testimony of His peace in a world that is restless and broken. It is in this calm that clarity of thought returns, strength is renewed, and that the believer is able to face trials without being consumed by them. Calm of the Spirit is not escape from reality, but strength to endure reality with the assurance that God is near, that His Spirit dwells within, and that His peace will never be taken away from those who abide in Him. Night prayer of trust is the sacred act of laying oneself entirely in the care of God as the day comes to its close and the body prepares for rest. It is a declaration of faith that while the eyes close in sleep, the Lord remains awake, vigilant, and protective over His children. The night is a time when fears often whisper louder. Thoughts of tomorrow's uncertainty stir in the mind. And when the silence can magnify the weight of hidden worries, yet the night prayer of trust invites the soul to find peace, not in its own ability to control what comes next, but in the unfailing assurance that God holds all things in His hands. Pray in trust before sleep is to say, Lord, I place myself, my family, and all my concerns into your care, for you are faithful, and your love never fails. It is surrender wrapped in confidence, a quiet resting in the shelter of the Almighty, where fear is silenced by His presence. The prayer of trust at night carries with it a release of burdens that cannot be resolved in human strength. Many carry into the evening the regrets of the day, the tasks unfinished, the words left unsaid, and the trials still unfolding. Trust declares that these do not need to be held through the night. In trusting prayer, one lays them before God, knowing that He is able to do exceedingly more than human effort could achieve. Trusting in Him means that even in darkness, there is no need to fear, for the one who is light surrounds and protects. The night may be long, yet His presence makes it secure, and even in the silence, His voice reassures the soul that He is near. This trust is not blind, for it is built upon the evidence of God's faithfulness in the past, His promises in His Word, and the witness of His Spirit that dwells within. To pray a night prayer of trust is also to acknowledge the limits of human control. The world does not rest because one sleeps, yet the believer can close their eyes, knowing that God does not abandon His creation. His hand still sustains, and His will continues to unfold. This prayer is a moment of release, holy transaction where anxiety is exchanged for peace where fear is replaced by assurance, and where uncertainty bows before divine sovereignty, the trusting heart finds that rest becomes deeper and more refreshing because it no longer wrestles with worry. Trust allows the spirit to lie down in safety, just as the psalmist declared, I will both lie down and sleep in peace. You alone, O Lord, make me dwell in safety. In this posture of trust, rest is not just physical but spiritual, for the soul is confident that no harm can befall except what God allows, and that his plans are always for the night prayer of trust. Also prepares the heart for the dawn of a new day. When one entrusts the night to God, they also entrust the future, acknowledging that tomorrow is not theirs to control, but his to provide. This trust reshapes perspective, turning worry into worship and fear into faith. It is an act of love toward God, saying that his ways are perfect even when they are not understood. The trusting soul can sleep with the calm assurance that nothing has been overlooked by the Creator. Every detail of life is known to him, and that his mercy will be new in the morning. In the stillness of the night, trust becomes a shield, wrapping the believer in peace and reminding them that God is nearer than their very breath, watching, keeping, and sustaining them through every hour of darkness.